I've done a lot of history videos. I've talked about everything from ancient Rome to the fall of the Ottoman Empire to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. But in all of those videos, I have never ever been asked this question until now. So today, we are answering the weirdest history questions from across time 1800s to 1900s. Question: why did witches only take baths on Tuesdays? Now this one doesn't have a real answer. There are just a lot of theories. One theory says that witches took their baths on Tuesday because that was the day that they believed the devil was at his weakest. Another theory says it was because the Romans believed that the planet Mars, which rules over Tuesday, gave those who bathed on that day magical powers. And yet another theory says that it was simply because witches lived in the countryside and Tuesday was the only day that they had time to travel to a river and bathe. Question: did people really sleep with their dogs back in the 1800s? Yes, but not for the reasons you might think. Back in the 1800s, people didn't sleep with their dogs because they wanted to. They slept with their dogs because they needed to. See, there were a lot of robberies back in the 1800s and people couldn't afford fancy security systems. So instead, they relied on their canine companions to protect them while they slept. And where did these dogs sleep? Well, right next to them in bed. Of course. Question: what was the weirdest position people used to sleep in back in the olden times? Well, one of the more popular ones was called the tailor's pose, and it involved sleeping while sitting straight up in bed. Now, this wasn't very comfortable, but it was popular among the wealthy because it allowed them to have their clothes pressed while they slept. Question: did people in the past have more fun at their funerals than at their birthdays? Well, sometimes, in the 1800s, it was common for people to have celebratory funerals for those who died, especially children. It was common for the family to hold a sort of festival at the gravesite with food, drink, and music. And then, once the coffin was lowered into the grave, everyone would go back to the house to continue the party. Now, this might sound weird to us today, but to them, it was a way to cope with the immense grief they felt at losing a loved one. Question: did pineapples used to be rented just for a single night so people could show off to fellow partygoers how fancy they were? Well, yes. Back in the 18th century, having a pineapple at your party meant that you were rich and important. But if you weren't rich or important and you still wanted a pineapple at your party, you could rent one. For a single night, pineapple rentals were so popular that there was even a special name for the people who delivered them. They were called Pineapple Kings. Well, there you have it. Some of the weirdest facts and practices from across time.